Deploying devices in Entra ID and Microsoft Intune can be confusing with so many different configurations that you can do. So in this week's episode, I'm going to take you through them all completely step by step. I guarantee you're going to learn something here. Today's video is sponsored by SquareX for the ultimate in browser detection and response. Visit them today at squarex.com. Well, as Obi-Wan Kenobi once said, hello there. Welcome to the channel. Andy here. So nice to see you and a warm welcome. On today's episode, we're talking connectivity and specifically connectivity to Entra ID and Microsoft Intune. It seems that every week there's a new setting or new configuration. And let's face it, it can be a little confusing. So today we're just talking connectivity. I'm going to talk about Entra ID Connect. We're talking about hybrid connections, and we're talking about what happens when you bolt Intune into the picture. So we're talking mobile device management, Intune, and so on. Now, just a quick mention, if you haven't subscribed, we'd love you to come on board. So bump the subscribe button, ring that bell, and come and join our learning community. And if you enjoy the session, give me a big thumbs up. It really does help. Also, just a quick mention, of course, that if you've got questions, comments, I also love those too, so get those down below. So I think without any further jibber jabber, I think we'll jump in and take a look at all things connectivity in Entra ID as well as Microsoft Intune. Check it out. Okay, let's have a look at the different ways of registering devices in Microsoft Entra ID as well as Microsoft Intune. So first of all, I'm going to show you an Entra ID domain join. And with this, I'm simply going to come into Entra ID, going to come into devices, and then we're looking in here into device settings. And in device settings, what we're going to do is we're basically going to switch on a couple of options. Now in this case, I've already actually gone ahead and enabled it, but you can see users may join my device to Entra ID. In terms of register a device, the registering the device is for BYOD devices. You can also limit the number of devices that you want to join, and I mentioned these on last week's video, the local admin settings. These are currently in public preview. To be honest, I'm not a fan of those in terms of security. You can also enable the local lapse services. This is the local administrator password service, and this basically synchronizes passwords on devices. So now what we're going to do, just updating those settings, and I'm going to, first of all, I'd like to show you Entra ID domain join. Now, the idea of this is in Windows, you have one machine that it can either join Active Directory or it can join Entra ID. So I'm currently logged on as an admin, and I'm going to do an Entra ID join of this particular machine. So I'm going to come into Windows 11, into Accounts, School and Workplace Join, and I'm simply clicking on Connect here. So in the Connect window, you don't do the email address, but you can see the two join options there. So this is essentially which system is going to have authority over this machine. So in this case, it's the cloud, and I'm choosing Entra ID. So I'm just logging on with my user account and my password here. And this is, I've got a user called Joni. And Joni is joined, and you can see it's just saying, is this the correct organization that you want to join? I'm going to say yes, it is. So at this stage, Joni has got a license. She's got an E5 license and a Microsoft Intune license, but I've not switched the Intune component on yet. So now that Joni has joined the organization, she just simply goes in and logs in as another user. And for this, of course, you need to put in your UPN or user principal name along with your password as well. So now she's going to just restart that machine, and you can see it's now restarted. I've kind of jumped ahead a little bit here, and you can see it just says it might take a few minutes to actually go ahead and deploy. So I've gone ahead and I've done that, and we now of course log back in again. Now of course Windows Hello passwordless authentication is a requirement these days, so she'll be prompted to set up this, and again, just for the purpose of this little demo, I've just jumped ahead with that. So once that's done, she'll then pop into Microsoft Edge, and she'll pop in for example, any Microsoft website. So in this case, we're going to go in with portal.office.com. And as you pop in there, you can see it's not prompting you to sign in for that user. So that's an example of multi-factor authentication and single sign-on rather. Okay, so from that, we now go into hybrid. So how does hybrid work? Well, in this case, I've gone ahead and already deployed Entra ID Connect here. So we've got a connected organization. From Server Manager, I'm going to come into Group Policy. So Group Policy here, we're simply going to come down into our computers, and you can see I've gone ahead and I've created an organizational unit called Seattle Clients, and this is where all of my clients are, my client computers. So now that I've done that, what I want to do is I want to create a little group policy for this. So of course, just a reminder, you can create this either at the OU level, so Seattle Clients, and that would affect just all the clients in that organizational unit, or alternatively you can create it at the domain level, so you can see the contoso.com level. Okay, and I'll come back to this in a second. Now just before we start that, just make sure of course that your users are licensed, and also make sure that you go into the devices and you've enabled that Entra ID Domain Join option there. That's obviously really important. So now that we've done that, we've got all of those settings configured, the next thing that we want to do is obviously start thinking about our workstations. In terms of users, of course, licensing is super important. So again, I've already licensed Joni. Remember that you can't license users in Entra ID. You need to license them in Microsoft 365. So to get the whole sync thing going with our devices, there's a couple of things that you need to do. So first things first, you've got Entra ID Connect. And as I've just mentioned, you've also got to switch this on via group policy as well. So let's do the group policy setting first. So again, mention the Seattle servers here. And again, you can deploy it either at the servers OU level, or in this case, I'm just going to push this out at the domain level. So remember, the computer policies is exactly what we're looking for here. So I'm simply going to go in here. I'm going to go into admin templates, and in admin templates, I'm going to go into Windows components, and in Windows components, we're going to choose device configuration. So in device configuration, all it does is basically says register domain join computers as devices in Entra ID. And that's exactly what we're going to do, and just click on that checkbox and then just click on save. So I'm just going to pull that up a little bit, and then we'll just save that down at the bottom there. So now that we've done that, of course, you do need to give it a GPO update. So again, what I'm doing here is I'm just doing a CMD command prompt. You can do this through PowerShell as well. I'm going to right click and choose to do this as an admin because it's an elevated privilege, and I'm essentially just typing GP update /force. So the old command lines, they never fail, do they? So now that I've done that and we've updated group policy, now we can concentrate in Entra ID Connect. Again, I've done videos on this. In fact, I did one very recently on this. But the one thing that we never configure, of course, are the devices. So I'm simply going to go in, configure the device options here. And in here, it says, what do I want to do? Do I want to do a hybrid Microsoft Entra ID join, or do I want to do a device write back? So if you're writing computers back to your Active Directory, I always felt that that was looking a bit backwards though. So I don't really recommend that. Okay, put in your credentials. So I've got a nice demo account here that I'm just using. And of course, put in the password and any MFA settings that you might have. And once you've done that, it should just take a few moments. And now you can see here it's connecting to Entra ID with my global admin. So you do have to be a global admin here. And again, it says, what do you want to do now? So this is the other component there. Configure hybrid Entra ID join. So this is obviously the one that we want. You can do the device write back, or you could just remove it. So in this case, I'm going to stick with the top option there. So I'm going to click next. And it says, which operating systems are you going to use? I'm using Windows 10 devices and above, so that covers me for Windows 11. Again, I'm just clicking next in there. So this is now saying, okay, where's it coming from? So Contoso, and where's it going to? It's going into my Entra ID platform. I simply click on add, and you will need to have a domain admin account here. So I'm simply going to put my Contoso/administrator in here, and I'm going to put in my password there, and I'm going to click on OK. So now that I've done that, you can, by the way, that's quite useful. There's a little button there, then you can, if you want to download the script, you can do that there. So the lights are all green, it's all looking good, so I simply click on next, and off it goes, and it's ready to configure. Now, compared to the initial setup, actually, as you can see, it just takes a moment or two. Now, I have to say that when we go back into Entra ID and just refresh the page, now this can take a little bit of time to come in. So I've found in the past it can take an hour, a couple of hours for this to come in. But you'll see that as the devices start to come in, they'll start to appear. And as you can see, I do actually have one hybrid device that actually has come in, and this is my DC, or of course my domain controller. So again, you'll notice here that there is a difference between them. So I've got Joni's machine WS1, so this is Entra joined, and of course I've got the DC one here, which is hybrid joined. And as I said, it might take a little while for those other machines to start syncing in. Now the key thing is though that you can't manage these hybrid machines. You can still manage them, of course, through Active Directory, SCCM, group policy, and so on, but not through Intune here. Now, on a similar note, you can see that we've got Joni's Seattle 1 machine here. And again, you can't manage this machine from here. And the reason, of course, is because we haven't deployed our Intune or MDM, Mobile Device Management Platform, yet. So very importantly, though, you can still manage this through the likes of conditional access. You can still deploy apps to it, but you just can't manage it in Intune. So the next thing that we might want to think about is how do we actually manage this in Microsoft Intune. So what I'm going to do first of all is that, again, I'm just refreshing this page just to see if there's any more machines coming in. So while we're waiting for that, what I want to do is show you another scenario now. So we've talked about doing a device join and Entra ID domain join, but now I want to show you a hybrid domain join. So I have another machine here. I'm just logging into this other machine, and I'll just sign in. And if I'm going to just flip over here into our users. Now, of course, licensing is very important. I have another user here called Aaron, and as you can see here, we've got no option to license the user. So just to remind you that you do need to go into Microsoft 365 to do that. So I'm just going to flip over into Aaron's account here, and as you can see, we've got Aaron. If I go into his properties of his account and then click onto the licenses and apps tab, sure enough, you can see that I've gone ahead actually and licensed these users here, or this user here. So he's got an EMNS, an enterprise mobility and license there. So up next, what we're looking to do is we're looking to get Aaron managed in Intune, or at least Aaron's device. So to do this, we need to do a couple of things. First of all, we license the user, which I just showed you here, and now we need to switch on or activate the MDM or mobile device management platform. So again, you don't need to use Intune, by the way. There are other options that you can add in, and I've mentioned those in previous videos. So for this demo, I'm simply going to come into the device onboarding option. If I come into enrollment, and you can see we've got the enrollment tabs for the different platforms there. But for the purpose of this demo, we're focusing on Windows. So I'm simply clicking onto the automatic enrollment. And in here, you can see that by default, the automatic enrollment is off. So I'm simply going to click this on. I'm going to switch it on there. And just a quick mention that if you're using terms and conditions, then you need to go in and configure that in advance. You can do that either here, or you can do that through the likes of conditional access. If you're using information protection, so Microsoft Purview, there is of course a way to integrate the client into information protection with Windows, and again you can enable that here as well. I've covered this in previous Purview videos actually. So for today, I'm satisfied with, I've switched it on all for mobile device management and for all of my users. So this just takes a moment to update, and of course there's other things that you can put in here, the compliance links, help links and things like that. So now that I've done that, I'm going to now flip back over to my client 1 machine, and this time I've reset the machine from Joni, and now I'm logging back in as admin. So now that we've logged back in again, the next thing is we're going to go through that whole join process. Do remember, only 2 authorities can have either authority for this machine. It's either Active Directory or Entra ID. The difference between domain registered devices is you would typically use this for mobile devices. So I'm simply going to go into Accounts, School and Workplace Join, and again I'm joining my Entra ID, just entering Aaron's email address, click on Next, and again his password details there. If you've got multi-factor authentication set up here, it would go ahead, and of course it would kick in that as well. So now that we've done that, I'm just going to say, yeah, make sure that this is your organization. I'm quite happy with that now. So I'm just going to wait and just set up my device. Again, I've just jumped ahead a little bit with this, and you can now see, sure enough, it's done. Click on the little ellipse here, and you can see that just make sure that you've correctly joined the correct organization, which I have done. And now that I've done that, the next thing we'll need to do is we'll need to go ahead and restart this machine. But again, it doesn't take too long to do that. So we go ahead, and I'm just going to restart this, and then when I come back in, it will all be configured for Entra ID. And now, because we've licensed that user, we'll also be able to sign in. And again, you've got not only single sign-on, but we've also got the ability now to manage the user in Microsoft Intune here. So as I've said, this just takes a few moments, and Aaron will log off and log back on again. Now, as I've said, Microsoft are getting quite heavy with the kind of multi-factor whole authentication here. I've gone ahead and just jumped ahead from that in the video just to save time. But of course, you will need to then go ahead and of course set all that up. And once that's in, you're all done. So basically now if I just quickly flip back to the portal, in the portal, of course, I can then just go into devices, and sure enough, here's my device. If I go into Windows, I can now see that Aaron has been licensed in Intune. His device is now managed, and I can do things like remote wipe, sync the device, do an antivirus scan. I've got a remote access device here. Absolutely superb. There you have it, the different ways of configuring devices in Intune and Entra ID. So there you have it, all things connectivity in Entra ID and Microsoft Intune. I hope things are a little bit clearer for you, and if you've got questions and comments, as always, get those down below. Thanks so much, and do stop by next time. I really do appreciate it. Take care.